Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Board Game Blog number 5. This is for May 16th, 2013. Today's topic is sort of a special request. I had some requests come in, I've kind of been asking for feedback, what topics people would like to see. And probably the number one request was, what do you think of two-player games or, games that are good with two and things like that. And most of the people that emailed me with that idea were like, what's a good multiplayer game that also plays well with two? And actually, Ryan Metzler at the Dice Tower did this exact video. I think his top 10 multiplayer games that are good with two. I can't remember if he said they were best with two or good with two. So actually, this was a little bit of a brain burner for me in a way because there's, the player count thing is just kind of, it can be real nebulous and things. I mean, there's certain games like Kalis is one of my favorite games, but I absolutely hate it with two and with five. So there are other games that are they're pretty good with two, but they're really better with more. So, and I kind of just went back and forth over and over again. So I broke it into 10 games, which is sort of out of the norm, and I don't want to get sued, by Tom Vassell for doing a top 10. I'm just playing around here. So I broke it into two groups of 5. I'm going to do 10 through 1, but the top, 10 through 6 are games that I probably prefer playing with more than two, but they're very excellent, I believe, with two. And then the 1 through 5 are ones that I probably prefer, just with two. I mean, that is like by far my favorite way to play it at least. So enough preamble. Let's talk about the game. So number 10 here is Stone Age. This is a game I like with more. Now with the expansion, which I don't own, but I've played, I do like it with more than two. But the basic game, I really like it with two. I like it on the iOS. If you've got the iPad or iPhone or something, you can play against the updated AI. They just had a patch that makes the AI much better. Who's actually beaten me? The other AI that was previous to that was not very good. But this is a game I like. It's a very light game. I've played this with the family. I played with my wife and kids. And they liked it quite a bit. So that's the number 10. So the number 9 is kind of two games, and it's a little bit of a cop-out. So it's a Race for the Galaxy and San Juan, which to me are kind of the same game. Now San Juan, I like to get this to the table more often because it's just a little bit more accessible. I can play this with family, friends that don't really do heavier games and stuff. And I think I get close to the same experience as Race. Now Race, I just have the basic game here and the expansion, and I should say I have the expansion for San Juan, and I would definitely recommend getting that expansion because I like the basic game enough, but the expansion just adds more fun to the game. So, but Race I've played with the other expansions. I haven't played with the newest one, which is supposed to be coming out any day. So if you watch this video in the not too distant future, you may have the Alien Artifacts expansion, which I want to try, but this is just the Gathering Storm in the base game. I do not really like it playing with the other games because it has too much just random different paths to victory for me. And if I'm playing kind of a lighter, quick card game, you can play this in about 45 minutes. I just don't want that extra baggage and that sort of like an extra anchor with all the different scoring and everything like that. But this one I actually like, like I said, I like playing this with more than two. I think more than with two. So I like playing with 3 or 4 just because I like to just sort of the dynamics of that, of the way the roles and your choosing of the roles and stuff will kind of evolve through the game. With 2, it's kind of more tit for tat, a little bit chessy. But I do like it. I do like playing with the advanced 2-player. That's the only way that I play that. There's actually 2 variants if you're not familiar. There's sort of basic 2-player, and then there's advanced 2-player where you choose 2 roles every turn. So that would be, my number 9, both those games. The next one, that's funny, I have Eminent Domain, and this is a game that I do really like it with 2, but I really like it with 3 and 4, and I think my attitude towards that has evolved over time as my groups got more familiar with it, and I've sort of, I took a little bit of a break from the game, then we played it a few times, a couple months ago, kind of was in rotation, and we played some 3 and 4 player games, and those games can kind of end a lot quicker than a 2-player game. You don't really get a chance to get your engine going as much as in a 2-player game. But I've really kind of grown to like that. Everybody's kind of, adapted our play styles to be a little bit quicker, a little bit more on the ball, and really kind of driven the efficiency aspect of it a lot more to the extreme where it's like I don't have time to fool around. I've really got to focus on, keeping my deck optimized for whatever, particular strategy I'm going for. but it's really great two-player too. And this is the way I played it mostly when I first got it, and played this with lots of different types of folks too. You know, people like Eurogames and stuff, and also some buddies of mine that enjoy Magic, and they really got into this game, probably more so than any other game except for one later on the list here. So that's Eminent Domain. And now the next one here is Le Havre, which really I only like 2 and 3. I think I played it 4 once. I've never played it 5. And just I think that's common consensus. It's a little bit of the internet kind of driving my opinion there, to be quite honest. But with 2 and 3, I think it's fantastic. It's definitely excellent with 2 players. This is a good game because it's one of those really heavy games that works really good with 2. And it's kind of hard to find a game that works excellent with 2 that's not necessarily heavier all the time, but yeah, heavier games, games that are a little bit more dynamic. Like Tigers and Euphrates isn't really heavy, but with 2 it's a little bit bleh, you know. But like, I don't know, Terra Mystica with 2, you know, that would be kind of weird, I think. I never played it with 2, but you know, I'm just trying to make a little bit of an abstract point there, is that to find a really heavy game that works really well with 2 has been a little bit of a challenge for me. So that's Le Havre, definitely a game I recommend. And just a quick sidebar, I've never reviewed a Rosenberg game, and a lot of times I don't know how I feel about them. So this is, I don't know what it is with the designer. Maybe I'll do an episode or something on him and try to really sit down and suss out my feelings about it. Because I play these games and I like them, but at the end of the day, I'm like, boy, I just played a really Euro-y game. So I don't know. It's but this is a good one though. I enjoy it. It's just this one I gotta be in the mood for, like all his games. So number 6, I believe, is Andean Abyss, and so this is the one that kind of bridges the cutoff between the top 5 and the bottom 5. Now, I played this only 2 and 4. Haven't played it 3, and I'm up to probably 6 plays. I'm in the middle of my 6th game actually on Vassal for a 2-player game, and I've played it at least 10 with 4. Now, when you play with 2, you miss kind of the negotiation and the trading of resources part, which I do enjoy, but it's a heavy part of the game, but it's not like the most critical part of the game. I would say it's kind of a sub-critical part of the game. But playing this with 2, I think, is maybe overlooked. And I don't know that it may even be overlooked by the designer, because I don't know that he even says that, you know, he probably doesn't even recommend it with 2. I think I heard him say something like that. But that's, you know, that could be wrong. But this one really is excellent with 2. You basically take on 2 factions. So if I'm the government, I'll be the government and the AUC, the right-wingers. And then the other guy will be the FARC, which are the communists, and the drug dealers. So you pair up your factions, and both of your factions have to win for you to be able to win the game. So you can kind of, you get rid of that negotiation, you kind of have one faction sort of set up the next one. And so there's a little bit of actually card combos that can happen if you sort of, you know, kind of plan a little bit and, you know, build up sort of a build-up of forces and things. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart here, but this one is, I think, is overlooked 2-player. Now, I definitely like it with 4 because of the whole, you know, back and forth negotiation, like I said. But definitely a game that I would highly recommend 2-player, but only if you've played the game a couple of times to kind of get a sense of what possible cards are going to come up and how the board is going to lay out. You know, different areas of the board are going to be more important than others and things like that. So you want to kind of have a little bit of experience before you dive into a 2-player, or else it'll seem pretty chaotic, I would assume. So that's, I have a good feeling that that would be the case. So that's Andean Abyss. So moving into the ones that I probably would exclusively play 2-player. Some of these are definitely would be an exclusive. And not to say that I wouldn't play them with more, but it's just like, I'd rather play them with 2 if nothing else. So number 5 is Castles of Burgundy, and this is fine with 3 and a little bit long with 4 probably. It's still okay. The problem with this is, though, this is very much just a choosing game. I'm going to choose this tile and choose these points. And to have any real effect on other players directly is not really existent with 4, especially with 3 is, you know, less. But with 2, you can actually take opportunities to deny players tiles and have it make a lot of sense, you know, in your overall strategy of the game. So that's pretty much what keeps this one, you know, locked into sort of, I'd rather just play this with 2. So that, and this will kind of, you know, spread to another game later in the list. So that's number 5. Number 4 is Innovation. And Innovation, I just never will play with 4. I have, and I hate it. And I love it with 2, and 3 is pretty good. Now you got to have the right group, I think. I think you need some experienced people. The 3-player actually adds a little bit of the idea of trading knowledge and ideas and stuff through civilizations. That part, it kind of gets missed in the 2-player. But if you have a leader in a 3-player, then the other 2 of you, the way that you share the symbols on the cards and things like that, that's sort of a nice cooperative aspect that you can use to sort of tamp down some of the abilities of somebody that may, be perceived to be in the lead. But with 2-player, that's very much, sort of a battle card game, back and forth combat, but it's not unlike any game like Magic or anything, but it has that same sort of feel of head to head, but in a totally different way. So this is just an excellent 2-player game. And if you have sort of a partner or something that likes heavier games, this is one of those that it's a card game, but it's still very, very heavy in a lot of ways, and very chaotic in some ways. But this is one I would recommend, and this is one that's going to take a few plays to get into. It definitely took me a couple plays to get into. So number 3 is going to be, this is Ascension. So you can tell I'm a fan of the game. I got rid of all the regular boxes, and I just have these little deck boxes here. I have every card, every expansion, every promo card. I have sleeves, and I have every little bead for honor tokens and stuff in here. This is one that I really, really, really would not like to play with more than 2. When we play it with 3, actually, with some of my Magic buddies, like I was talking about with Emmett Domain, we actually added 2 more cards to the center row, just to have 8 cards in the middle. Whatever, I don't care what people think about that, but that's just how we play that, because it's like, the churn can change over too much in that center row, especially as you get more ability to buy and fight stuff, and it's just like, okay, well, I cannot plan for anything because, there's no way this card will come back to me. And if I banish this card, overall, basically banishing is pointless with more than 2. But with 2, I think this is a very overlooked game. There's a reason that some of the same players always end up higher ranking on the different tournaments, and etc. So, I think it's a very, very overlooked game. There's definitely subtlety here that I think people just kind of overlook because they go, oh, it's like Dominion, but it's random cards that come out. These, there's a lot of games that have copied this, and they don't do as good of a job at all. And this one is, it's a game that I would definitely recommend. Now, I will say that the base game, which maybe hurt some of the perception of it, is pretty simple. The Chronicle of the Godslayer. But as you get into, the Return of the Fallen and Storm of the Souls, then you start to get some excellent little combos that you can set up with some of those extracurricular abilities, and then the game kind of jumps out of the water a little bit with the latest expansion, which is the what's the expansion called? Oh, Immortal Heroes. No, not Immortal Heroes. I'm having a brain fart. What is the expansion called, Joel? Expansion is called something with the energy shards. Okay. I have no idea. I'm having a huge brain fart. And one with the energy shards really kind of throws the game for a loop. And I would say that would probably be just as bad with more than 2. Sorry about that, having a brain fart there. But anyway, Ascension, definitely a great game. All right, number two. Everybody hates this game except for me. Urban Sprawl. Definitely a game that I would much prefer to play with 2 players. 2 reasons. One, I don't have to hear the other, 3rd and 4th player whine. Because a lot of people don't like it, my group, and I'm sure other people in the world, because of the way the events come up. I really like the events. I don't think they're that game-breaking. If you're in a bad position when they come up, then they can definitely hurt you, but I've also, caught up from like 50 points behind to win a game. I like it with 2 because it's kind of like you're both 2 political parties, let's say Republicans and Democrats. And so you're just kind of behind the scenes manipulating, sort of like party bosses, trying to get all the different elections. And I really like that aspect of it. And the cool thing is it's sort of like you each have a shared hand of cards because you got those 2 rows of cards that you draft from and pick up. So you can see all kinds of stuff that's going to happen, and you really have to be cognizant of what you can do to affect the other player, to deny the other player, and then kind of, do to get your own sort of engine and your, strength and get those big cards played for lots of money or lots of points. So I really, really like that aspect of it. And the other thing that's interesting about this is, as far as like the whole Sim City thing with the building of the cities and stuff, This one, everybody's on the same board in the same city. And I really kind of thought about that because, like, I really liked Suburbia last year, but definitely not as much as this one. And then there's other games I like, and so this whole thing with like player boards. And it's like, okay, we each have separate suburbs, but why are we drafting from the same group of buildings? I mean, where do these buildings come from? Are we bidding against contractors and stuff? And so this one is, there's not separate player boards. We're not building our own cities. We're fighting over the same city. And I think that is, you know, we don't have enough of that in games. We're fighting over like a shared space. And I think that's highly important in this game. And to me, that it fits with the theme is because we've got a city, you know, there's crime waves that are going to happen. There's other little events that are going to happen. We've got to manage and deal with that. And I just really get into that. And it's just very curmudgeonly. And this is a game where like I could smoke a cigar and play it. You know, Power Grid is another game like that where when I play it, I want to light up a cigar. And then I just want to be these douchebags that I hate on TV. But, you know, that's kind of what this game gets into me. So anyway, this is great 2-player though. If you didn't like it, maybe tried it with 4 or 3 or something and didn't like it because it went long, and I get that. But with 2-player, that's definitely, you know, head to head, tit for tat, all that stuff. All right, number one with 2 is Trajan. This is a game that you can actually spend, I don't know, hours and hours and hours playing this, and I've played it, I don't know, 20, 30 times. I don't even keep track. But this is a game that, as a 2-player game, is just pure excellence. Now you got the Mancala here. You know, it's difficult to get into because it took me, I don't know how many plays, let's say 3 or 4, to really even have some kind of good idea of what I was doing. You know, the first couple of games I'd have moments where I was like, oh, okay, I'll kind of do this and this. But you can really sort of, you take an initial look at your Mancala and how those little, you know, beads come in there in the middle. You've got the different colors. And even from where you're going to choose the Trajan tiles to go in there, if you take a good amount of time and really kind of plan out and sort of, and I usually tell people to plan backwards, which makes sense to some people and some not. But you look at, okay, if I got this Trajan tile, I'm going to land here, I'm going to get these extra workers, but I need to be in good shape so that I can have huge turns. So this is all about having explosive turns. So if you can find that turn, and then you work backwards and think about, okay, what's the best way to spin this little Mancala wheel to get there? And so I can gather up points and maybe deny tiles to somebody else. So you can always sort of plan your game in bursts. So as you kind of, you know, do your different actions and gather stuff up and put people out and get cards and things, you're going to coagulate all of those little beads into one spot almost. And it's just going to happen. As you do it around, you're just going to start to build up a bigger one. Then you've got to basically trigger that one, spread them out again to give yourselves more options, because you'll get to a point where you're like, I can only do this one action because of the way the beads are spread out. So you blow up the big one and then you work your way back again. And then you get sort of a nice rhythm with that, and you can keep track of your opponent's Mancala and you can get a good idea of what they're trying to go for. Now with 3 and 4 players, then it's very, very hard to do that. It's almost impossible to do that for me. But this, you can actually have a good back and forth. And, you know, take you're going to go up the Senate, take the military area, take the little building area, the forum or whatever it's called. And boy, I had a huge brain fart. The forum is not where you get the buildings. The forum is where you get the tiles and stuff. Whatever the worker area is. So I'm just doing horrible today. You know, where you get the buildings and you can place adjacent to each other. That spot. I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's a huge part of the game. And then getting the military stuff, denying people the stuff they need to feed Rome. The shipping's kind of there, but you can kind of randomly get lucky and get a nice hand of cards there. So I don't usually pay too much attention to that. I kind of just a little bit opportunistic with that. So anyway, those are the 2-player games or multiplayer games that play good 2-player. So I think there is definitely different types of games in here for anybody that maybe is watching the video. Super heavy games like Urban Sprawl and Trajan's kind of heavy. And then you got this like Ascension here, like, you know, this is very light. You can play this half hour. San Juan is another half hour one. Stone Age is a good one if you're kind of new into games. But all of these are nice because you can play them 2-player, but, you know, most of these you can play with more players. Like I said, Urban Sprawl, Die Bergen von Bergen, Castles of Burgundy, Ascension, those are ones that I probably wouldn't really want to play with more than 2. But people do. You know, there's other people that aren't me that like to play them with more than 2, so I take that for what it's worth. But those top 5 games, you know, 6 through 10, those definitely play really good with 2 and with others. So that, take that as worth. So it's kind of 2 separate lists that I just kind of combined into one here. So, and I think I've talked for a while, so that is the episode for this week. Thanks for any feedback.